It's the 7th of October. I'm Jerusha Sukfiya Rath, and here are today's news headlines. Disciplinary proceedings against 20 EFF members are set to get underway today. The daughter of one of Eugene de Kock's victims believes de Kock should be eligible for parole, and Obama speaks up about eradicating Ebola in West Africa. Parliament's Powers and Privileges Committee will today begin disciplinary proceedings. That's against 20 EFF members, including leader Julius Malema. Now, it's all for behaviour that saw MPs heckle President Jacob Zuma in the National Assembly. The committee is tasked with probing the actions of Malema and his fellow MPs and to find out whether this constituted contempt of the legislature. EFF spokesperson Mbuyiseni Ndlozi said on Monday, that was yesterday, that all 20 MPs would appear before Parliament. Now, you'll remember the MPs face charges of disrupting and displaying contempt for the National Assembly. It all came after MPs shouted, "Pay back the money" at Zuma when Malema questioned the president about Public Protector Thuli Madonselo's report. In her directive, she found that the president should reimburse the state for luxuries added to his Nkandla home. The EFF last week sought an urgent interdict to stop the process, claiming that the Powers and Privileges Committee were likely to be biased because the majority of its members are from the ANC. The application was dismissed by the Western Cape High Court. Now, the MPs risk being suspended from the National Assembly for up to 14 working days if found guilty. According to Beeld, Candice Mama, the daughter of a man killed by apartheid-era police colonel Eugene de Kock, believes that de Kock should be granted parole. 23-year-old Mama was 8 months old when her father was killed in 1992. She and her family reportedly visited de Kock in jail last week and said, "Growing up, I had a face and context for my father's murder. Eugene was in prison and served his time. My family already forgave him before the meeting." She said de Kock had shown true remorse and that he was a victim of apartheid and was brainwashed from a young age to believe that what he was doing was right. In August, Justice and Correctional Services Minister Michael Mashuta announced that de Kock, who'd been nicknamed Prime Evil, would have to wait another year before his application for parole was considered. This was all to allow families of his victims to be consulted. Now, de Kock was in charge of a police death squad at Vlakplaas outside Pretoria and was arrested in mid-94. He was convicted and sentenced in Pretoria in 1996. And finally, US President Barack Obama's administration maintains that the best way to protect Americans from Ebola is to end the outbreak in Africa completely. Now, statistics from early this month suggest around 7,500 people in West Africa have contracted the disease, while 3,500 have died from infection. Obama stressed there was no room for error with the treatment of the disease. A nurse in Spain yesterday became the first person known to catch Ebola outside the outbreak zone in West Africa. She contracted the disease after treating 2 people who were flown home from Spain after they contracted Ebola in Africa. Meanwhile, a critically ill Liberian man is being treated in the US with experimental drugs in Dallas, Texas. For these stories and more, stay tuned to News 24 Live. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel.